Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Casey Lankow along with
Dr. Tim Johansson.
And welcome to the first installment of the ADW Profile podcast.
Yes.
Tim, ADW standing for
A Deeper Way.
A Deeper Way. The ADW Profile is our assessment tool that we developed.
And the handy desk reference here.
The handy desk reference, which we'll be referencing many times in the ADW Profile podcast. You may be familiar with us from the Psychology at Work podcast, which we talk about concepts, ideas, guests from time to time, and have certainly mentioned the ADW Profile from time to time on that podcast. But what we're going to be doing on this podcast, which is the ADW Profile podcast, is talking exclusively about the ADW Profile. And so we talk about the ADW Profile as a global measure of personality. And of course, if you're a human that exists, you probably have a concept of a personality assessment. Some might be a little bit more in alignment with what it actually is. Then there's Facebook quizzes. But Tim, do you want to talk just a little bit about what this isn't your normal run-of-the-mill personality assessment that we're going to be getting into the weeds about?
Yeah, at first when you said if you're a person, I thought you were going to say you have a personality.
Well, this is true too.
Which is true too. But yeah, ADW, A Deeper Way. And as it aligns with personality, we think of personality on a few different levels. And so the first sort of level of personality, and a lot of our listeners will be familiar with this, are what we call strengths, things that we're naturally good at, right? And maybe some social skills and other things like that fit in this level too. It's stuff that just comes natural to us. So what are our strengths? What are we kind of socially skilled at, right? So that sits at level 1. Level 2, personality. Again, a lot of tools out there have level 2 personality assessments, and that's looking at what we call traits and patterns. So what are my default traits, default patterns? If I'm in conflict, how do I kind of naturally, what do I default to, right? One thing I like to say when I'm giving feedback on the profile is when we're looking at traits and if you wind Tim up and just let him go, where's he going to end up, right? Well, that's informed by my traits and patterns. Yes. Look out. Yeah. And so if you wind each one of us up and let us go, some of us end up extroversion, some of us end up alone, right? And so we'll dig into that stuff too, because it's super informative, particularly when we're looking at probability. What's the probability somebody may access these behaviors? And we'll get into some of the misconceptions of traits and patterns, i.e., I'm highly assertive, so I have no choice but to assert my will at every moment.
Or I'm good at this and bad at that.
Yeah, or I'm good at this and bad at that. Yeah, so we'll clarify some of the common misconceptions of things. Now, getting more interesting, level 3.
There we go.
Level 3 shifts from sort of what we kind of understand historically as this little box of personality and what do we like, right? And it adds more richness and depth it's still very much in the realm of personality, but how do we think about ourselves? So that's called self-concept, right? And interestingly, we have different ways that we each think about ourselves.
Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm. So not everyone thinks the same thing about themselves in style and what they say out loud and what they feel inside, right? But how I think about myself, right? Metacognition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Also at level 3 is psychological values.
My
And
personal
I
favorite.
was just going to say, and I know this is your personal favorite. I'm going to violate in a deeper way
Tenet.
facilitation skill. Why is it your favorite?
Well, it's my favorite for many reasons. I think if I had to kind of pick or nail some specific reason down, uh, it's sort of tapping into, I think, some of the more unconscious parts of personality, the
Mm,
parts that are really constantly operating within us and
mhm.
around us even, but we maybe aren't always aware of, and are impacting how we show up more than we um, are usually talking about, right? And
Sure.
so, we all have needs, and of course we'll talk about these when we get into the episodes about these, but this is starting to get into the depths of personality that's usually actually getting in the way of the team working at its best,
Yeah.
but the team isn't even close to having the language or the awareness to talk about that.
Yeah. I love how you talk about level 3 and 4 work, or particularly around why it matters so much. And you phrase it, you couch it really well when you say, if it was just level 1 and 2, just try something different.
Right.
Right. And well, we all know if we're introverted or extroverted or agreeable or tough
Yes.
minded. And has that solved
Yeah.
all of our problems? No, it solves many,
Yep.
and it helps with many things. But when we get into this, and you used it, the U word, unconscious, and I love that. And we'll kind of talk about that a bit in this podcast too. But so much of our tacit understanding, our felt experience, our lived experience, so much of that goes on without explicit words that we're putting on it, without
Yeah.
explicit uh, intention that we're putting on it.
Yeah.
And that's really unconscious.
An ADW profile really helps to uncover a lot of that stuff
Yeah.
and really put some language and a bit of a framework around that for people, often
Mhm.
in the first time that they've experienced that.
Mhm.
Um, so few kind of technical elements about the profile before we
Yeah.
start digging into the aspects. It's 150 items, just statements which you're responding to on a Likert type 6-point scale.
Mhm.
Perhaps we'll do an episode on construction and talk about why
Yes.
6 points. Um, there's no neutral going on here. Okay.
Mhm.
Um,
I'm
takes the
just
average
biting
person
my
about.
tongue.
I did that on you on purpose. You don't get to talk about it today. Um, takes about 20 minutes to complete, and then one of the really incredible value adds is from that one assessment you have access to 7 different reports depending upon what kind of information do we need, how do we want to look at these 40 aspects for this person. And so we'll get into all those different reports throughout the podcast, but what we're going to start on and will be the focus for several episodes are breaking down the 40 different aspects of
Mm.
personality that are measured. So the next 40 episodes plus we'll just be looking at one little aspect of personality and kind of breaking that down into more
Yeah.
detail. What does it
Yeah.
mean? How do we talk about it? When is it a really helpful thing? When might it get in the way? And then just a few ideas that sometimes
Yeah.
we use with our coaching clients.
I'm super excited about a few things. Can I share them?
Sure, please do. I don't know,
Just
can you?
for those of, yes, for those of you who know us through the Psychology at Work podcast, you're in for a treat, because what we get to do with this ADW profile podcast, we're trying a few different things here. So I'm actually looking at our production schedule. We have 50 episodes lined up. 40 on the aspects, 9 more on the families. This one makes number 50, actually number 1. But once we finish working our way through those, we're going to get into how do you use the tool. We're going to get into, like you said, how is it constructed, and kind of talk about some of the geek out stuff that a lot of our listeners want to hear. And so this podcast and this platform is going to be really focused, like you said, on the profile, but then on how do we use it on cases. And I'm excited to see with this lens where we end up with, and kind of the episodes we release later. They're going to be shorter than the long format. So these are, I think we're focused on about 10, 15 minutes. That's going to be really hard for me.
Not me,
but I'm excited. Yeah, come on, you're excited. You get to shut me up.
I know.
Obviously, last piece too, difference in format. We are available on the YouTube channel now.
Yes.
So you get to look at us.
Yes. So we have to.
Who are these people?
We have to wash our clothes and do our faces and all that stuff. But it's waist up, so we still don't have to wear pants. But
and brushing our teeth is, they wouldn't know.
No, but we should have good oral hygiene. It's a predictor of wellness.
True.
So subscribe anywhere you listen, just as you normally would, to the ADW Profile podcast. Check us out on YouTube. And of course, I'm sure we'll be cross promoting Psychology at Work from time to time as well. But thanks for joining us on this new journey. And you are going to really learn all there is to learn about ADW Profile. So in the meantime, get after that self-awareness.
Be curious.